Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Today's vlog is going to be an especially enjoyable one. Maybe it will be for you too. Something I've waited for a long time to see and hear. Never thought that I would, but I did today. I'm going to tell you all about it. There was a press conference today, White House briefing, Kayleigh McEnany. I try never to miss those because, well, and if I miss them, I can replay them on YouTube. She is so good at what she does, dealing with a hostile press, and that's what they are. They are not objective reporters trying to get information to inform us, the American public. They are trying to elect Democrats. It's very clear what they're doing. It finally came to a head today. That's why I'm smiling. The occasion was, you probably know by now, I'm sure you do because I'm recording this on a Friday, you're seeing it on a Monday, you had the whole weekend. Oh, and by the way, I hope everybody's having a nice Labor Day. I know I am. But, well, I know I am even before Labor Day because I'm recording this on Friday. Anyhow, the occasion was to talk about a historic agreement that was signed earlier today between Serbia and Kosovo. It's not a full diplomatic agreement. It's not a full settlement of all their differing issues. It is a full economic agreement, though. There are going to be full economic relations between these two countries, these two states. I'm not going to go through all the details. It stems from the war, Serbia-Kosovo, that happened many, many years ago. What matters today is that they are finally starting to get together. They could not agree on politics. This was a point that Ric Grennel made. I'm going to talk more about him. Actually, I'm going to focus on him today. But it's a departure from what has gone on in the past. Grennel was talking about how important it was, how instrumental it was to have an outsider, Donald Trump, because past diplomats, past administrations had been trying to get an agreement done by focusing on politics. That hasn't worked. What Trump did that was different was to say, let's put the political differences aside. Just you two make an economic agreement. You will both benefit economically. They agreed. The agreement was signed today in the Oval Office. And as part of that agreement, Kosovo, which is a Muslim country, by the way, it's a Muslim country, followed in the footsteps of the United Arab Emirates and recognized Israel. Now, they have always had great relations. That's no secret in that respect. They've always had great relations, but now it's going to be formal. And they are going to open an embassy in Jerusalem. Another historic event besides the UAE, United Arab Emirates and Israel agreement, within 1 month, two historic agreements. So 3 people were there. Let me look them up here, make sure I get the names right. It's, well, I know the names, it's getting the titles right. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, Special Envoy for Serbia and Kosovo, Peace Negotiations, Ric Grennel, and White House Senior Advisor Jared Kushner. I want to talk about Grennel now because they were there, these 3 people. It was the usual Kayleigh McEnany press conference. It was a typical press conference, but these 3 individuals were there today to discuss the historic agreement and to answer questions. But what they got from the press were questions about China, questions about mail-in voting, all kinds of political questions. Nothing. There were a couple about Kosovo and Serbia, about this historic agreement. Finally, there came a point when Robert O'Brien said, because they were getting near to the end of their time at the press briefing. So they said, I'll take questions. I'm not talking about this other stuff. You have questions about Kosovo. Anybody have questions about Kosovo, Serbia? Raise your hands. And a couple of reporters did ask those kinds of questions, but then someone else raised his hand. Another reporter started to ask a political question, and it was to Ric Grennel, and Ric Grennel had finally had enough. He just gave it to the press. He just called them out. It was just glorious to see, and I want you to see it too. So here it is.
In our country, and somebody's going to keep Americans safe and continue to get things done for them.
Question for Ambassador Grennel.
Another follow-up question for Kosovo, please.
Ambassador Grennel, clearly you were effective here as the special envoy to these talks between Serbia and Kosovo. But I wanted to ask you about another initiative you led. Last year you kicked off the Trump administration push to decriminalize homosexuality.
Yeah, I'm going to just talk about Kosovo and Serbia. I don't know if you can find it on a map, but this is atrocious. I have to tell you guys, you might be too young to understand what this issue is about. Maybe the older journalists should step up and say, this is a big deal. This is a big issue. I'm astounded at what happens in Washington, D.C., and especially in this room. I got to tell you, get substantive. Maybe it's too complicated of an issue for you all.
Rick, respectfully, this is the first time we've had the opportunity to speak with these individuals. So
okay, but today's about Kosovo and Serbia. Let's take a little time and talk about this 21-year issue, Peter. I mean, 21-year issue. We're getting the same questions that are all politics. You guys don't understand what's happening outside of Washington, D.C. People aren't listening to you anymore. It's really a crisis in journalism. And I think it's because people are too young to understand issues like Kosovo and Serbia.
Can I ask
How about a
substantive
question?
Please? I don't think any of us came here for a lecture about our questioning.
Okay, well, I didn't come
But the
here
question
to
I would
not
like
talk
to
about
ask
anything
you,
about Kosovo.
What you just saw was a severe dressing down, an admonition, a calling out, a condemnation of our totally biased Democratic operatives with bylines, media, the mainstream media. This has been a long time coming. I was happy to hear it. And even after that, it got even worse. There were some questions, while they were about Kosovo, but what really struck me was they were not questions to get information for us, the American people. They spent their whole time, these reporters, it was obvious to me, and I wish someone else would have just come out and asked one of these gentlemen that question so that they could reply right there, call out the press again. But it was clear to me that they were not trying to get information. They were trying to disparage and delegitimize the agreement, this historic agreement. They were trying to poke holes in it. They were trying to make it not seem the great historic achievement that it was, because, again, their goal is not to provide information to us, the American people. Their goal is to elect Democrats in general, and specifically to defeat Donald Trump in November. That is totally what they are about. It's a real shame, but it was wonderful to see them finally called out. There was one reporter that tried to object and say, no, tried to say we're objective reporters, we're just doing our job. Not those exact words. That was what he was trying to say. Grennel was having none of it. He really, he even said, well, some of you, I guess you're just young. You're too young to understand how important this is. He really gave them patronizing dressing down. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. It was just a joy to see. All of you should see it and share it. But not until, if possible, if you don't mind, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? You can put them in the comment section below the video, as well as any questions you might have, suggestions for future topics. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. But most of all, thank you all for taking the time to visit with me, and I would really love to see you all again. And until I do see you all again, bye.
First, a clear V-shaped recovery. Also, I want to address what is quite clearly fake news. The story in The Atlantic has been categorically debunked by eyewitnesses and contemporaneous documents. The Atlantic claims, quote, when President Trump canceled a visit to the Ain Marne American Cemetery near Paris in 2018, he blamed rain for the last-minute decision, according to The Atlantic, saying the helicopter couldn't fly and that Secret Service wouldn't drive him there. Neither claim was true, says The Atlantic. That has been debunked. Behind me, you will see an email from one of the president's military aides that clearly reads, "We are a bad weather call for today's lift." The Atlantic reporting is based on 4 cowardly anonymous sources who probably do not even exist. Meanwhile, within hours, 10 sources, 10, went on the record debunking these lies, 8 with firsthand knowledge, stating on the record one common truth, that this story is false. It never happened. Adding to the 8 that were previously counted, I'm bringing you 2 new ones. One is from Derek Lyons, Staff Secretary and Counselor to the President, who says this: I was with the President the morning after the scheduled visit. He was extremely disappointed that arrangements could not be made to get him to the site and that the trip had been canceled. I have worked for the President for his entire administration. One of my responsibilities is working with him on the many letters he signs to the families of our nation's fallen heroes. In all my time at the White House, Derek writes, I have never heard him utter a disparaging remark of any kind about our troops. In my view, he holds the brave men and women of our armed forces in the highest regard. I also bring to you today another quote from a former member of this administration, Dan Walsh, Deputy Chief of Staff, former Deputy Chief of Staff, who is also a retired military officer. I got off the phone with Dan just before coming out here, and he wanted me to share with you all, I can attest to the fact that there was a bad weather call in France and that the helicopters were unable to safely make the flight. Overall, the President's support and respect for our American troops, past and present, is unquestionable. And Dan recounted to me several events he went on with the President, like a World War II veteran who flew with the President on the helicopter in Normandy, visits the President had with our wounded warriors, special ops teams who came to the Oval Office, including the team that got al-Baghdadi, and they brought along Conan, the dog, as well. He met with families at the Army-Navy game. He does this routinely. And at the World Series, when he got an opportunity to go watch the Nationals, he brought veterans with him. And I can tell you from what I've seen from this President, I have heard him describe his visits to Walter Reed in detail, and the angst he has had and the compassion he has had and the hurt he has had viewing these warriors who have been absolutely injured in the line of duty and are courageous heroes. And I've heard him recount how meaningful those visits are. I've also seen him just a day before this article came up talk about there was rain and lightning popping around, and he said, I want to go out there and I want to talk to our World War II veterans. This is America's greatest generation, and the President holds them in the highest of regards. So why would a publication abandon all journalistic integrity and publish this story? It's because the liberal activists at the Atlantic are uninterested in the truth, and they are only interested in peddling conspiracy-laden propaganda. Because here is the one truth. No one, and I mean no one, loves and cares for our servicemen and women as much as President Donald J. Trump. Thank you.
Kaylee, do you have any questions?